In this video, I'm going to show you how to build an N8N automation that will keep an eye on everything in your niche, all the trends that are going on. It will take those trends and it will find information about them by going to sites like Google News. It will look up what's going on in the niche to do with that trend, scrape all the content off Google News, then pass that through to AIs that will then create content ideas for you automatically in the background constantly. So it's like an AI team constantly watching and monitoring what's going on in your niche to come up with ideas. I'm going to show you what it does first so you can see what I'm talking about. Then we're going to build it step by step together and you can watch me do it. So I'm going to click Start Automation. It's going to go quite quickly, but I'll walk you through what's going on. So I click Start. The first thing that's going on is here, it's gone to Google Trends and it's found some trends that are happening in the niche. It's then processed those trends to see which ones match our niche most specifically, and then goes to Google News, gets the results from Google News, scrapes the pages, sorts them out, and then cleans them up into a nice readable format that we then pass in through an AI, and the AI reads all of this information and comes up with article ideas, either for content for a blog post, social media post. So you can see here, it's given me 3 ideas here. If I just close these up, these are the 3 ideas. Within the 3 ideas, it's given me bullet points on what to talk about. So this is a really easy way to keep an eye on everything that's trending in your niche so you don't have to. So every morning you can come in and set this on a timer and get ideas by tracking what's going on. Now, this works really well for a niche where there's a lot going on, like AI automation or anything where it's constantly updating and there's a lot of news. So what it's done is the first step that it did was go to Google Trends and it's typed in a keyword. And then it looks for related searches down below here. If you look down below, it's got related queries. It grabs these queries, sorts through them, and finds the most related to your niche and filters out which ones are not relevant. And then it goes to Google News with that keyword, types in the keyword to Google News, scrapes all the content from news that's going on, feeds it into an AI, which reads it and processes it and comes up with bullet point ideas for content. So let's build this thing together. So what you need to do is get an account at N8N. There's a link below if you haven't got an account. Now, if you're building this out on a more production scale, you'd want to connect this to a database like Airtable. I use a lot of Airtables in my automations. Now, for the sake of keeping this video relatively short, I'm not going to connect it to a database. You could connect it to Google Drive to have a Google Sheet if you wanted to, but I'm just doing a simple automation where I'm going to trigger it manually here just to show you this part of the automation. But again, this idea could be linked to a Google Sheet and pull through the keyword. So all I've done is a manual trigger there. So to do a manual trigger, if you just want to copy this exactly as I've done it, you just go manual trigger. That's going to start the automation. Then the next node here is called SERP API. So you need an account over at SERP API to run this. So if you go over to SERP API and you just get an API account, they give you free credits. So once you've got an account there, all you need is your API key. So in order to connect SERP API to N8N, this is what's going to do the live searching for us. This module's an HTTP request. So in N8N, if you go to the sidebar, they actually have a built-in node for this called SERP API Official there. So click on that, and then all you need to do for this one, there's a lot of endpoints that we can use here. You can do really cool stuff with this, but I've just used the Google News endpoint and the Google Trends endpoint. So the first one is Google Trends. So we click Google Trends in here. First time you're setting this up, you're going to need to put in your credentials. So you need to go in here and put your API key. So over at SERP API, when you go over there, set yourself up, get your API key, come back, plug it in and click save, and they'll give you free credits. Then in here, what you want to do is click the operation to Google Trends from the drop-down menu like that. And then for this example, I've just hard-coded in a keyword just to give you an example in this automation. Of course, if you're doing this on a more of a larger scale and you're going to pull keywords automatically through from Airtable, you'd want to map that dynamically in there like that. So I've just used this to keep this video shorter, just put the keyword in here. But again, if you're pulling it through from another automation, you can see in a lot of my other previous videos, I show you how to pull stuff from Airtable. But if you pulled that from a webhook, and the keyword came through from a webhook, all you'd be doing here is dynamically putting that to expression, and then you would pull and map in the keyword in here that you want to fire that automation from. So the other thing you want to do in additional fields is click it to related queries. So again, what's going on here, if you go to Google Trends, this is what's getting this field over here, the related queries. So we've got a keyword topic that we're tracking. We want to know what related queries are actually getting some traction in Google Trends and rising, like interest, is going up. So that's what we're doing in this setting here. Now you can play around with different settings in here of language, code, time, and you can change like to how recent you want it to be. You might want it to only be in, in the last week rather than in the last year. So you can play around with these settings to adjust it to whatever you want. With the date there, you can go a date setting. This is the last 12 months. But if you click in here and go to SERP API's documentation here, by that link there, you can actually go to their webpage and they show you different settings that you can play around with that to get like last 7 days, last 30 days, whatever you want to do. You can just change that parameter in there. So you can dial this in to whatever makes sense for you over time. So once you've done that, you just run that automation and it's going to get the keywords here that are related and that are trending in order. So you could process all of those, but for the simplicity of this video, I'm just going to process the top result. So what I did then is add a code node to clean that up a little bit. And I'll give you this below the video to save you having to figure out how to do that. But what it's doing here is getting me the top 3 results. So instead of just getting, I think it might have been like 50 results or whatever it was, I just wanted to get the top 3. So I've got the top 3 results for these related keywords that are trending. Now, in case they're not all relevant, I'm going to pass that through to an LLM and get it to choose one. So I just put a basic LLM chain in here, which is an AI. So if I go over to the right here and go basic like that and just choose basic LLM chain, this is adding an AI element here. So all I got to do here is attach an AI model to that. So over on that chain there, you need to put an AI model. In here, the AI model I used was GP4 Mini. It's a simple task, so we don't need to use a complex reasoning model. If you haven't done this before, you need an account at OpenAI. Go to OpenAI, set up an account. They'll give you an API key. Same thing, you have to come back in here and you need to put in your API key. So I'm not going to go through that because that's something, if you're doing automations, you just have to get used to putting API keys in all the time. So once you've got an account set up with OpenAI, put your API key in, come back in and choose the model. You can choose any model you want, but you don't need a complex model for this simple task. So just use GPT-4o Mini because it uses less tokens, so it's cheaper. So once you've done that, the other thing that you want to do now is just do a simple prompt. So what I've done here, I've said your task is to select one query that closely matches the niche of marketing automation. Depending on what your niche is, you can change this around, and this could be dynamically pulled in from Airtable or some other table or Google Sheets if you wanted to. So I've just told it I don't want geolocation keywords. So I don't want marketing automation Perth or marketing automation California. I just want other related topics that aren't geolocated. So I gave it that prompt. Now, this is a very simple prompt. You could make this a lot more complex if you're building this out. But for simplicity, just to show you how this method works, I'm just keeping it quite simple. Then what I do is I adjust this. I map in those results here. So over here on the left, you can see these top 3 queries. If I just sort of map those in just like that, let me just pull that in and show you what happens. If I map those in, look over on the right, all we see is object, 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 because all the N8N can see in here is the objects inside of that, which is 3 of them. So these are contained in objects like this, and we can't map it in like that because it can't read it. It just reads objects. So what we're going to do here to make the AI be able to read it is we just adjust this expression and we stringify it. So you can see I've stringified this. If you look closely how that changed, you can see embedded in there is the original mapping expression there. All I've done is add the stringify command at the beginning. And then I've put null2 at the end, which just structures it nicely like this so the AI can read it. So that's all that's doing. And if you're using N8N a lot, you want to get good at using things like stringify, null2, and other things like to lowercase. There's a lot of manipulations of data that you can do, which makes it easier for AIs to read the information and process it. That's a really important thing to learn when you're doing automation. Then I give it the output format that I want. I just want one query that's the most related to my niche and filters out for geo-targeted stuff. So it processes that pretty simple request. And then if we hop out of here, out the other side, it will give me the result here. And it shows AI, AI for marketing automation. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is take that query and I'm going to do a Google News search on it. So all I do here is add the search API module again, but this time I'm changing the operation to Google News. So instead of Google Trends, now I'm going to use Google News. And I'm going to map in this search query here from the previous module that AI just gave me. So I'm going to grab that, map it and drop it in there like that. So I'm going to set that to expression, drop that in, and the additional fields, I'm going to set this to United States and English. You can manipulate this again to different settings. Play around with this to whatever you think you need to fine tune it to. Once I do that, I get all the Google News results here for this particular keyword. Now I could change it for dates and stuff like that, but for simplicity, I'm going to leave it at that. These are the latest news results for this main keyword. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to clean up this data because I don't want all of it. It's too much. So I'm going to add another code node here, which is simply going to get me the top 3 results. So all this code is doing is JavaScript in here. It's restructuring and just pulling the top 3. So if we look in that, you don't need to be a coder to be able to do this stuff, but it's basically just restructuring and slicing the first 3 results out of it. So I only get the top 3. Because what I'm going to do is going to pass those top 3 into the next module, and then I'm going to scrape them. So you'll notice on the right-hand side now, you can see items 3 over here. So this is giving me 3 items, and I've got the URL here for each item. So what I'm going to do now is pass that URL into a service that's going to scrape it for me, and then I'm going to reformat and clean up that scraped result here. This is what's going on here. Aggregate it all back together, and I'm going to pass that to an LLM to read this. So what happens in here, in this module, I'm going to do a loop over items. So a lot of people get confused with loop over items when using N8N, and it's kind of understandable if you haven't done it much because they don't really explain it super well. And then when you actually add the module, it's all messy and hard to understand what the heck's going on. So I'll show you that in a sec. But in order to scrape these web pages, I'm going to use a service called Data for SEO. So Data for SEO, you need to go over and get yourself an account here. They give you free credits as well. So go to Data for SEO. Once you're in Data for SEO, you go to the playground here. So Data for SEO, get into the playground. And then when you're in here, you can actually get an endpoint, which I'll show you where it is, which will actually go and get that URL and scrape it. So in order to use Data for SEO, it's the same as everything when you're doing automation. Get your API key, you got to come back, plug in your credentials. Once you've hooked up, then you can pull from their service and they will scrape, in this instance, they will scrape those web pages for us. So I'm going to jump in here to an HTTP module to do this. So in order to connect with Data for SEO, I need to go HTTP on the right, like that. And you want to add an HTTP module like this. Okay, so what you need to do is I'll show you the settings that you need, but the first thing you need to actually set up your account here. So this is going to be a header authentication here. Now, if you haven't done it before, it's going to look like this. It's not going to look like that. That'd be empty. But you're going to put in the credentials that Data for SEO gives you in these 2 fields, and then you're going to save and connect. That way, when you've saved it, your information will be stored in these nodes for next time. So you can see I've stored a lot of nodes in here that I use. So Data for SEO should be stored in there. I don't know why it isn't. It's odd, but if I hop out of there, I'm just going to delete that because I don't need it twice. If I open this one up here, you can see, it actually looks like I didn't save it. It looks like I just had hard-coded my API key. But what you want to do in here is, this is the endpoint that we're calling on. It's called Content Passing Live. So that's the URL that we're calling. An endpoint is just a service at Data for SEO. It's saying, this is what I want you to do. And you use a URL to tell them what you want to do. So back in here, we use a post method to do that. We send it to post. And then we click send headers, and we have authorization as the name. And then in the value, we have basic with a space and then our API key, which I'm blurring out on the screen now. Once you've got that set up, you want to go to the body, slide it over to green, JSON, using the JSON below, like this. And then in this field here, we just do a simple JSON, which is just a URL like that. Now this URL needs to be mapped from the previous loop module. So I'm going to show you how to do that loop in a second. But what you're actually dragging in here is the news link like that. I'm dragging and dropping that in there. I'm just going to put that down below so you can see. I actually dragged that from somewhere else, but you can just, it's the same link. I'm not sure where I grabbed that one. I'm scraping params. Looks like I must have pulled it from, I must have pulled it from down here. So it's the same URL. It actually wouldn't have mattered which one I did. So I could just scrape. Probably better to put that one in there like that. Right? It's just saying this is the URL I want you to scrape. So if I hop out of there and then I hop out of here, what I'm going to do is put this loop over item. So the reason I'm doing this, if you'll notice out of this code node, we had 3 results. So if I open this up again, you'll remember we had 3 news items that we want to scrape. So if you look, that comes out of that code node, there's 3. So I want to pass one by one into the Data for SEO service and scrape one at a time. And that's why I use a loop over items. So on the right-hand side, I'm going to go over here and go loop over items like this. You'll notice when you set it up, it's a little bit odd the way they do it. But anyway, you don't need that item there. They're trying to illustrate to you how to use it. Just clean it up like that. And when you do that, all you're going to do is from your code node, I'll just replicate it down here, drag that to there. And then from the loop item here, this bottom one, this is what you connect up to that data for SEO module like that. And then I'm going to delete it now because I don't need it twice. And then what you want to do is data for SEO will give you that data back and it will produce a scraped version of it. Now, it doesn't give you a really easy to use format of it. It's kind of messy. So if we use a code node in here, we can clean it up. This is what they give us, all these, it's kind of like in little chunks, the data of the website. They sort of chunk it up. So we want to stitch it back together. And what we can do is use this code to stitch it back together. And then it stitches the whole web page in a nice clean format back together for us that we can then pass on to an LLM. And we want to do that 3 times. And the way we do it 3 times, because we've got 3 results, is after that code node, we drag it back to the beginning of the loop and it will loop through until it's finished these 3 items. And then the done module out here, we pull out here and add an aggregate model. So what I'm going to do here is go aggregate like that, would be that module there, aggregate. I'm going to delete it because I got it twice. Inside here, all I simply do is go all data on all items like this. And then it's going to aggregate all those scraped pages back together into one output for me. Once I've got it like that, then I can pass that to another LLM, which is exactly what we did over here. So you're just replicating that. We're going to give this a different prompt in here. And we're just going to say, here's your 3 source datas, 1, 2, 3. So I map in the content from all 3 of those scraped pages, which are just the scraped news results like that, scrape them, drop them in there. And then in the system prompt down below, you drop that down and get system prompt. In here, open it up. We just tell it a really simple prompt, read these sources and come up with ideas. And you can play around with this prompt. This is very simple, but just telling it, I want you to read those sources, come up with ideas in a bullet point format for me. So the way I tell it how to structure that output like this is I slide this green select output format over to green like that. Then I attach over here an output parser. So the way that you do that is you just go structured output parser. I think it's structured output parser, that one there. Once you attach that on, we just given an example of how we want it to output. This is the structure that we want you to output like that. So it can see that I want bullet point lists like that. By doing that, I get exactly what I want, and I've got a finished result now. So what I've got here is I've got an idea. I've got bullet point lists on what to talk about. Now, you could manipulate these prompts to get whatever you want, but the point of this video is to show you how we can start from, if I just go back and what we did here, we start from an idea that gets pulled in. That could be pulled in from Airtable. We first do a Google Trends search. We then process and clean that data up. Here, we get one of the top related keywords to what's going on in our niche. We do a Google News scrape. We get the top 3 results by using this node to clean those up. We then scrape those 3 pages using data for SEO, stitch them back together into one output, pass that to an AI to read, get the AI to read it and output ideas for new content for us, whether it be a blog post, a LinkedIn post, and we can have this running on a timer. You could set this to go every day, once a week, and you could also get it to just email you the results. So you could just get an inbox email every day or every week of the latest trends that are going on in your niche. So that's basically the automation done on N8N. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, do me a favor, hit subscribe, like, and leave me a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.